Hey guys, Wolfie here and welcome back to the channel. As always, the usual disclaimer, any opinion here is mine and mine alone. This is RWBY Volume 9, Chapter 1, and I'm going to go through the Chapter 9 official art, which will be revealed in a little bit. The name of this particular chapter is A Place of Particular Concern. Now, I do want to mention here, before I go any further, and it's a bit of good news, I will be revisiting Volume 9 next year when it gets onto Rooster Teeth's website. And that's because, as everybody knows, Volume 9 is a timed exclusive to Crunchyroll. Now, for anybody that's wondering, I actually am a premium member on Crunchyroll, so it's one of those where it's like, I get to see, the episodes before everybody else. But I won't be doing Chapter 2 here because I want to stay true to the whole wait a week before everybody else, gets to see Chapter 1 that wants to see it on Crunchyroll. Now, and that's Sandy. He says hi. So, without any further delay, we're going to go reveal the official art for Volume 9. And what I think about Chapter 1 is what I think is probably going to take place throughout the volume. So for Volume 9, this is pretty much the theme. It is Alice in Wonderland because of, the variant art, all that stuff. And for this particular, for the art here, you get to see like 4 stanzas, 4 different perspectives, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go over the major things from Chapter 1. And like I said, I saw Chapter 2 already twice, but I'm going to have to look at it one more time to really get some opinion on certain aspects of it. And part of that will be a separate video. Just a bit of a heads up on that. So this particular volume starts with something along the lines. This is a story about a girl. This is the story of a girl who had a lot of problems. That's a long. I don't think I got the entire quote correct, but it is along those lines. And that particular narration is 100% RWBY. Because as we all made aware from Volume 8, at the same time, meaning Volume 8, Chapter 1, Yang was the one who questioned RWBY's abilities as a leader. Something that no one's really have done since Volume 1, and Wise flat out said it. Although, later on in Volume 1, Wise was like, hey, you're actually you got what it takes to be a good leader. And Lice has been pretty damn loyal to RWBY ever since. Even though they're bickering like sisters, it's just Weiss seems to be really supportive of RWBY and her overall vision of what she wants in the world. So, we do know that in the beginning of Chapter 1 that RWBY and Blake actually get separated. Because remember, the end of Volume 8, RWBY and Yang pretty much fell at the same time alongside Neo. Although Neo wanted to fight RWBY, which is how Blake and RWBY got separated. And if you notice, in the RWBY's fight against Neo, and that's from RWBY's POV here, by the way, is that she saw flashes of Yang and Penny, which kind of reiterate Yang's doubts of RWBY as a leader. So, when RWBY wakes up the first time, it's you hear a high-pitched female voice. It kind of sounded like Yang. Now, we also know that in Chapter 1 that the first 2 people that reunite within the team are actually Blake and Weiss, which is a repeat from Volume 5. And to be more specific, Yang and Weiss reunited, which kickstarted the reunion of the team. Because you have to remember, Volume 4 was that whole thing where the team really split up for all Volume 4 and just about all of Volume 5. And then you have that brief split in a single chapter towards the end of Volume 1. And the reason why I mentioned this all net now is because it kind of reiterates that very first line. A girl with a lot of problems, being RWBY, and a lot of problems being within her own team. As well as her own abilities. And her abilities as a leader. So, when it comes to Blake and Weiss reuniting, Blake pretty much asks a lot of questions. Ruby kind of like, mentions, like asking the important questions. Although Weiss's priorities, making sure the entire team is present with the information she has, that she is in knowledge of. Which I feel is a smart move by Weiss, because you have to think about it. You don't want to be selective with what information you reveal to who. You want to make sure everybody in your team knows the same exact information. Meaning that Weiss does treat everybody as equals. Which is something that separates her from her father. Now, RWBY actually rescues Blake and Weiss because of a little character that she refers to as Little. Now, some people refer to the character here as Will. But I mean, I just hope there is some additional confirmation on the name. I'm hearing people refer to the rodent as Will. Some people refer to the rodent as Little. I mean, I could be way off on that one. So, when we see Yang in the beginning of this particular volume, she's without her her prosthetic arm. So, that's where Weiss reveals what she knows happens. Because she doesn't know about Winter. She doesn't know about Jean. And the way Weiss reacted was like, she is as equally heartbroken and really like distraught over it. And then you notice that RWBY faints over the information, which kind of indicates, and I want to point this out right now, if you look at the fact that RWBY and Weiss right here are looking towards the viewer, it kind of indicates that the vision that RWBY and Weiss have are very much one and the same. They agree on very key, solid morals and ideals. So on all of that, but and like I said, when it comes to like Penny's fate, we all know she's dead. And then, like I said, Weiss reveals the stuff that she was able to catch before she fell. And then, if you look at Yang, I think she said something to RWBY, like RWBY wasn't supposed to be here, which kind of puts the little thing on the team in doubt. But Yang has to realize RWBY leads the team, and it's like it was a matter of time before RWBY gets here. So it's like you weren't supposed to be here. So it's like, come on, Yang. You can't really keep control of your sister like forever. Especially if your sister is younger than you. Now, when it comes to varying new characters, it's like in the intro, there's going to be quite a few coming. Of course, the rodent here. That's one of them. You have like and their little village, and their like village. This year. But I do notice it's like, that like in the end of this particular chapter, it's like the team is like, let's find everybody's weapons and then figure out how to get out of here. Which I think is not a wise move on their end, in my personal opinion. I mean, granted, it might be beneficial for Yang, but not so much with RWBY. So, in the intro, I want to make sure I point this out about the intro. It's it's quite different than we've been used to seeing. And in certain aspects of the intro for Volume 9, it reminds me of Volume 6, meaning that you're talking about 3 people and then the 4th one, hey. Because in Volume 6, that intro was RWBY, Blake, Yang, and Weiss. And then you have in Volume 9, you have Weiss, Blake, Yang, then RWBY. But the facial expressions for, I believe, RWBY in this particular intro, it's like you're talking about somebody who has a lot of problems, And one of those problems is like self-doubt. And again, like I said, there's a separate video. I'm in the very baby stages of planning. I'm like, because I'm starting to see a lot of signs where certain things are going to go, and it may not make some people happy, but guess what? The signs are all there, and it's not a good sign. But anyway, like I said with the intro, RWBY is like, at some points, it's actually behind the rest of the team. And we all notice, like, you know, the newer character, alongside Blake and Yang, like, you know, leading, like, everything for once. Because it's like, one point it was like, I think it was like Yang, Blake, Weiss, and RWBY. And then, like, the rest of the time it's like Blake, I think it's Blake, Yang, Weiss, and RWBY. But I know, like, the person that's closest to RWBY each time was Weiss. And by the closest, anywhere near. So, with that, another thing in the intro, we're talking a potential new villain for Volume 9 being Neo herself. But with that all out of the way, what do I think about this, the start of Volume 9? Now, I am slightly disappointed in this because the length of the episode itself, and I'm excluding both the intro and the ending credits, the fact that it's a really short episode, it leaves a lot to be desired. In sense of, like, it felt rushed, first and foremost. Number two, it's like, it's just like an intro or whatever. It's just like, there's like, they have that whole, everybody's like, you know, let's just get our stuff and try to get ourselves out of here, And the fact that it's like certain priorities within the individual team members, is I'm like thinking, could this be a real split of Team RWBY? Could Team RWBY really be repeating the same mistakes of Team Stark? Because of all that. And another question I do have here is that regarding the seeds of doubt that inside RWBY. Because we have to remember, the beginning of Volume 8 was saw Yang, like, and this is not so much what she said, it's how she said it. It's like, pay attention to tone. It's like the way she questioned RWBY's abilities as a leader and whatever, it's like as if she was doubtful. Now you have to remember, Blake kind of did the same thing back in Volume 1, Chapter 3. Because you have to talk about, like, the ideals, you know, how does one want to see the world? And Blake's like, how she saw RWBY's ideologies, like, very, like, childlike. Somebody who wants things better. Blake's was a bit more pessimistic in that regard. And I do feel that if it does become the case, I do feel that Blake becomes the reason Team RWBY splits. And the reason why I say this now is because if you remember back in Volume 4, Taeyang mentioned to Yang about Raven and Team Stark. Team Stark fell apart because of Raven. You have to think of that third position. Blake, being the third position, might become the reason Team RWBY splits. And some people probably see this being like, oh, you're like, it's like some pretty nasty insults coming. But if you have to think about, like, repeating mistakes and learning from the mistakes, it's like the saying, those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. And if you look at Blake in the sense of, like, Volume 1, Chapter 3, in the sense of, like, she kind of disagreed, you know, the whole thing with what RWBY wanted, like, for the world. You know, something, you know, a child would want, but it's just like, sometimes you got to give a different set of ideologies a chance. And it's in later volumes, it's like, I think Blake was really eating her words. And if you look at the seeds of doubt planted from Blake and Yang, I think we're going to see those seeds of doubt manifest themselves in RWBY for Volume 9. And the person that quite believed in her, and this is because she corrected her mistake is actually Weiss. And I kind of say this in a sense because if you remember the ending of the intro to Volume 6, it's like you see Blake and like Weiss and RWBY, you know, helping each other up, but you see in the background of that ending, like you have Blake on one side and Yang on the other, meaning that there's a potential of tensions within the team surfacing. And if that does become the case, a few things might happen. One, Bumblebee either becomes one-sided, or if they do become canon, it will not remain canon because of the tensions. Two, questionable communication. It's like certain things are not being said correctly or to the right person, meaning that communication will destroy anything. And finally, it's just like, again, I do have to repeat certain things from earlier in this video. I want to make sure I have enough time because the app I'm using, by the way, is about a 35 minute limit. So it's like, I do have to talk kind of fast. To reiterate earlier parts of this video, just like, will Blake, you know, like, be the reason why Team RWBY splits? And the whole thing that was never really ever addressed was Volume 1, Chapter 3. Why Blake, you know, never really apologized to RWBY for that interaction. Although Weiss was made sure to correct herself. And Weiss has proven herself to be, like, you know, supportive of RWBY, you know, from here on out. And then another thing here, I do think that Bumblebee is probably going to be a one-sided deal. And people don't really, and as well as a potential for Team RWBY splitting. Now, people like mentioned on Twitter, you know, okay, yeah, they're looking at each other. But if Yang's reaching out and Blake not really reaching back, it's like, could it be Blake that doesn't really feel like that towards Yang? Even though Blake, not Yang, I was going to say Yang, but it's Blake who is confirmed to be bisexual. But like I said, it's like the fact that she's not really reaching back kind of reminds me of Volume 6, Chapter 1, where she kissed Sun on the cheek. But the question is, it comes down to when that was caught, whose POV that came from. And why, you know, nobody in the team had certain discussions about things like that or other important items. So that's just something to keep in mind. So it looks like we have here a bit of a one-sided Bumblebee. I do think that Sun's going to play a major role in that. In a sense, you know, Volume 6, Chapter 1. The fact that and this is how I feel about the matter, I do feel that Blake still has Sun in her heart. Even though she might be leading Blake might be leading Yang on in this regard. Now, in the sense of Team RWBY splitting, is that we're going to look at certain aspects here that nobody may have caught, and that we're looking here at Blake and Yang. Granted, they're looking at each other. They're also seeing that Yang is reaching out, it looks like, and then Blake being hesitant about reaching back. And then you look here, RWBY and Weiss, they're both looking towards the viewer. Meaning that they're talking about different ideologies, which could very well cause tensions to rise to newer heights. And things are probably going to go south. And people are going to be wondering on YouTube or whatever, like, why can't you just keep on moving forward? When it comes to, like, literature, anime, video games, you always cannot be going forward if you don't make mistakes along the way. Because when it comes to being human, it's like no one's perfect. People are going to screw up at some time. It's whether or not you are willing to learn from your mistakes. It's also in equal importance if you are willing to not repeat the same mistake twice, at the least, for the latter. So it's like, come on. This is definitely not only a one-sided Bumblebee, but we're also looking at a split Team RWBY. And I don't think the fan base really would want to see anything like that, in my personal opinion, because it's like, you can't have like different ideologies and they're not really communicating like to make sure things are on the same page between all. Now, as to whether or not I think it is going to be Blake that splits up Team RWBY, I think so. But Yang becomes a surprising catalyst in that. Because you have to remember, Blake is Raven's daughter. So it comes down to the selfishness between Blake and Yang coming to light alongside, how do I want to word this? So it's like their selfishness alongside, what they want. Where does it clash with the rest of the team? And is everybody in Team RWBY, are they willing to learn from Team Stark's mistakes? The teams of the past. And I'm going to check the timer for one last time, so that way I have enough time here. So I'm actually going to get going, but before I do, like I said, I want to repeat what I said earlier. There will be a Volume 9 Revisited series, and that's going to be next year when it comes out to Rooster Teeth, and by that, their website. And that's, the whole thing regarding things like, has my opinion changed from chapter to chapter? Alongside the episode, those videos, some may be longer, some may be shorter. And that sort of thing. Now, regarding Bumblebee as a ship in itself, I'm going to be very, very brief here. Is that, like others who have expressed this very opinion, I have zero issues with Blake and Yang becoming canon. Not at all. However, when it comes down to the execution of any pairing becoming canon, the execution will have a lot of people thinking, was it the execution done right, or does it need a lot of work? And the whole thing here with the execution of Bumblebee is among the worst in my personal opinion. The reason why I feel it's among the worst in my personal opinion is because the signs were not really visible until Volume 6. Which is a little bit more sudden as opposed to the development with Blake and Son, Volumes 4 and 5, and to a smaller extent with Volumes 2 and 3. And the fact that when it comes to assuming things about characters, it's like, and I mentioned the tensions here, I do feel that Weiss will become both a reason why Team RWBY splits and Bumblebee becoming one-sided. She becomes not only a reason, but she also becomes a catalyst alongside RWBY. With that part, with Weiss and Bumblebee, all that stuff, that's going to be in a future video. I don't know when I'm going to be addressing that, but it'll be a little bit further detailed when I get around to it. So that is that on that for this video with Wolvie here, signing off. I will catch you all on the flip side.